Howdy, it's Kyle talking about tri and quad city metropolitan areas in the US. There are plenty of metros in the country that have two anchor cities, a two-headed monster type metro, most famously Minneapolis, St. Paul, Minnesota, but there are plenty other ones that have two anchor cities, but they might not be right next to each other. These include Dallas, Fort Worth, Seattle, Tacoma, or Washington, Baltimore, but there are also smaller ones like Odessa, Midland, Texas, or Champaign, Urbana, Illinois. But what about three or four-headed monster metropolitan areas? There are plenty of metros that have multiple cities that make up the overall large metro. So that's what I want to do in this video, taking a look at some tri and quad city metropolitan areas in the US. I'm going to start off the discussion of tri-cities with the metro that's actually just referred to as the Tri-Cities, the one in Tennessee. The three cities that make up this metro are Johnson City, Kingsport, and Bristol. This is in the eastern end of the state. With the strange shape of Tennessee, it's over 500 miles between this part of the state and Memphis in the west. The Tri-Cities region is growing quite a bit in population, but it isn't evenly distributed between the three cities. The largest of the three is Johnson City with about 74,000 people, and it's also the fastest growing of the Tri-Cities. It's home to East Tennessee State University, which is home to the largest medical school in the eastern half of the state. The second largest city in the Tri-Cities is Kingsport with about 57,000 people. It's also growing quite a bit, but not as much as Johnson City. And this is much more blue collar, with the main companies being Eastman Chemical and the Domtar Pulp and Paper Company. So you have a nice diversification of the economy between these two parts of the Tri-Cities with medical and manufacturing. And the third of the Tri-Cities is Bristol. This is actually a twin city, with part of it being in Tennessee, part of it being in Virginia. The part in Tennessee has about 28,000 people. The part in Virginia has about 17,000 people. So this is the smallest population of the three, but it's also the slowest growing of the three. In fact, Bristol, Virginia is losing population. And Bristol is primarily known for two things. It's home to a large NASCAR track. I think they actually run dirt races there. It's also known as the birthplace of country music because this was just about the first place in the US where country music was recorded in a studio. So three cities in the area, each with its own identity, but the region as a whole is very beautiful, got nice Appalachian mountains all around. With a metro area population over 500,000 and growing, I can see why people want to move here. It's a really nice area, beautiful scenery, and a good job market. Next up, I'm going to the other three-headed monster metro that's simply known as the Tri-Cities, the one in Washington. The three cities that make up this metro are Kennewick, Richland, and Pasco. And just like the Tri-Cities in Tennessee, there's been a lot of population growth in this area as well, with the overall metro having over 300,000 people. And this region comes together right where the Yakima River and the Snake River both empty into the Columbia River right along the Columbia Plateau. Each of the three Tri-Cities is growing quite a bit. The largest is Kennewick at 84,000 people. The second largest is Pasco across the river from Kennewick with about 80,000. And the smallest is Richland with about 63,000 just upriver from both. It's basically one large urban cluster without any open space between these three cities. And the largest part of the economy in this part of the state is the Hanford site. And this was a major nuclear reactor site. It was part of the Manhattan Project in the development of the atomic bomb. There was uranium enrichment in the making of plutonium. There is still the regular old nuclear power plant there, so you still get some electricity generation at the site. But the rest of the site is either a national park with Manhattan Project National Historic Park or protecting the surrounding wilderness areas in Hanford Reach National Monument. But the Hanford site, even to this day, continues to be a major source of employment because of the cleanup at the site. There's been nuclear waste cleanup at this site for a while, and it's suspected to go on for decades more. But once you get outside of the city limits of the Tri-Cities metro, you get to a major agricultural region. You have very rich soil with some of the volcanic rock around there. This is part of the wheat belt in Washington. But this is also wine country in Washington with many grapes being grown. And as a personal side note, this is the largest metropolitan area in the contiguous 48 states that I haven't been to. But it looks like a nice area, relatively low cost of living for Washington, and I can see why people want to move there. From the far northwest to the deep south, I'm going down to the Rio Grande Valley in Texas. There are two main metros in this region that form one larger combined metro. The first is the McAllen-Edinburgh-Mission Metro, which is Hidalgo County. It's about 880,000 people with high population growth. And the other part of the combined metro is the Brownsville-Harlingen area, which has about 420,000 and also much population growth. You add these two up, and there's over 1.3 million people in this combined metro. Amongst this Rio Grande Valley or Borderplex region, the largest city is Brownsville, which is the largest one to the east, closest to the coast, has about 187,000 people. There's also a large port right there. It's not right there on the beach. There are some beaches there at Port Isabel, and also South Padre Island is nearby, but Brownsville is the closest one to the beach of the major parts of this metro area. The largest city in the McAllen-Edinburgh Mission part of this metro is McAllen with 145,000 people. The next largest is Edinburgh at 105,000, and then Mission at 87,000. With the region being right there along the Mexican border, it's often referred to as the Borderplex, and being there on the border is a huge part of the economy, with importing and exporting, transport and trade, warehousing and logistics all being a major part of the economy there. But this is also the main citrus belt for Texas, with red grapefruit being the main crop grown down there. And just like the ones I mentioned before this, another popular spot for retirees, many winter Texans go down there to have a second home or have an RV. A more recent part of the economy here is SpaceX and the aerospace industry, situated around an area called Starbase, which is brand new. So just like the other ones I've mentioned, you had a lot of population growth, diversified economy, some manufacturing, some high-tech stuff, some retirees, and popular place for people to be moving to. Next, I'm going one state over from Texas into northwest Arkansas. The official census name of this metro is the Fayetteville, Springdale, Bentonville, Rogers metro area, but most people just know it as the NWA for Northwest Arkansas. Fayetteville and Springdale are the two largest cities in Washington County, and Bentonville and Rogers are the two largest cities in Benton County, and all four of these cities and both of these counties are experiencing high population growth right now. The largest city in the metro is Fayetteville with about 95,000 people. It's home to the main campus of the University of Arkansas and many of the research labs associated with it. So another metro where part of it is more high-tech and research, science, and education oriented. And the city has a really nice downtown. It's one of the nicer college towns in the country. Really cool place. But directly adjacent to it is Springdale, another town that's experiencing much growth. It's home to Tyson Foods, the largest poultry plant in the entire world. But then you go up the road up into Benton County, you get to Bentonville, which is the headquarters for Walmart. So you had massive population growth here in the 90s as Walmart just exploded all over the country. And there continues to be a lot of growth today, many new jobs in the business end of Walmart going up in Bentonville. In fact, they're building a brand new giant campus for Walmart. The headquarters will look kind of like a big tech campus you have in the Silicon Valley. But Benton County is also the headquarters for J.B. Hunt Transport and Logistics, one of the largest transport and trucking companies in the country. And similar to the other metros I mentioned, this is also a beautiful area. This is in the Ozarks, the Boston Mountains, some beautiful scenery all around. So the running theme so far in this video has been very diversified economy. You have College Town, Tyson Plant, Walmart, J.B. Hunt, beautiful scenery around. I can see why many people are moving here. Now heading to the northeast, I'm going to New York State and the Capital District. For census purposes, this is known as the Albany, Schenectady, Troy metro area, but with Albany being the state capital, it's usually referred to as the Capital District. The largest of the Tri-Cities is Albany, with a population just over 100,000 and 315,000 in Albany County. The next largest is Schenectady with about 67,000 people and 160,000 in Schenectady County. And the smallest of the three is Troy with about 51,000 and about 160,000 people in Rensselaer County. And what makes all three of these cities and counties interesting is that they all have slight growth, which not a ton of growth, but most of New York is actually losing population right now. So for all three of these cities and all three of these counties to be growing in population even slowly is a pretty big deal. And again, the running theme for this video is diversified economy. So Albany, being the state capital, has much of the government stuff and services associated with it. And as a side note, I really do love the New York State Capitol building. It's one of the best ones in the country. Schenectady has a different economy going on there. There's a large GE turbine factory, and it's also a major GE research and development site. And then Troy has a different economy as well. It's home to the Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, one of the major tech universities in the state. And as a result, there have been a handful of small tech startups going up in Troy that are people that came from the university. And this is another very scenic region. So the Capital District is right where the Hudson and Mohawk rivers come together. It's very hilly, some nice ridges there. You have the Helderberg Escarpment. So just like the other metros I mentioned, a diversified economy, some beautiful scenery has led people to want to move here. So with much of New York losing population, they see this area really cheap houses. So Good spot to move to. I can see why it's growing. Going down to the Atlantic coast, I'm going to Virginia and the Hampton Roads. The overall metro area, which includes Colonial Williamsburg just north of these other cities, has a population of about 1.8 million. The largest city in the region is Virginia Beach, with about 460,000 people. It's the largest city in Virginia. And for as much history as there is in the state, well, it's not in Virginia Beach. Almost everything there was built from the 1960s to today. So as a result, it's basically all one giant suburb. It's entirely car dependent. There's no real downtown. It's one of the worst cities for walking in the country. It's heavily dependent on tourism. There's a very beautiful, wide, sandy beach there. The beach is lined with hotels up and down. There are many rental homes in the city. The second largest city in the Hampton Roads area is Norfolk, with about 238,000 people and a population decline. This is much older than Virginia Beach. There's actually a real downtown there, some high rises, and I would call it the CBD of the entire metro. Some of the neighborhoods in Norfolk are really high crime, but downtown is pretty vibrant and it feels like a real city as opposed to Virginia Beach. Naval Station Norfolk is the largest naval base in the U.S., which makes sense because it's right there at the mouth of Chesapeake Bay, which you would have to go through to get to Washington. This is also where you have the largest naval shipyard, where many ships are built and repaired. But also in this region is the Joint Base Langley-Eustis, which is both Army and Air Force. The third of the major cities of the metro is Newport News, and this is actually on the north end of Chesapeake Bay on the Virginia Peninsula. It's home to the largest shipbuilding yard in the entire country, and there really isn't much of a downtown there. There is kind of an old area, but it isn't quite like Norfolk's downtown or a real kind of CBD. Also on the Virginia Peninsula right there is Hampton, with about 137,000 people and a population decline. This is the poorest of the cities in the region. The largest of the cities that isn't in the name of the metro is Chesapeake, which has about 250,000 people and is growing. It's home to the corporate headquarters of Dollar General, which is growing like crazy throughout the U.S., but the vast majority of Chesapeake is just huge, open, wooded, and wetland swamp. So this is another multi-city metro that has a very diversified economy. You have the military, the port, shipbuilding, tourism, seafood, and Dollar General. Lots going on there. I can see why this is a popular place. Next to the Tri-City Metro that has the greatest name, the Piedmont Triad in North Carolina. The three heads of this metro are Greensboro, Winston-Salem, and High Point, and it's called the Piedmont Triad because it's right there on the Piedmont Plateau, which is the region between the Appalachian Mountains and the coastal plain of the Atlantic Ocean. And this is another region with high population growth. Greensboro has about 300,000 people, Winston-Salem about 250,000, and High Point about 117,000, and they're all growing a lot. And you'll never guess, but a diversified economy is what has led to the big population growth in this region. A big part of the economy here is high-tech medical, high-tech kind of stuff, science and research. So with it being so close to that huge biomed region of Raleigh-Durham, you can get some of those jobs to go just not very far, just over to Greensboro or Winston-Salem. I think both Greensboro and Winston-Salem have pretty decent downtowns, some nice entertainment district, perhaps a little more going on in Winston-Salem, but Greensboro has a little more of a younger crowd with UNC Greensboro and NC A&T being larger universities than Wake Forest. High Point is by far the kind of little brother of the three. It's much smaller. High Point University is smaller. The downtown feels more like a smaller town. High Point is known as the furniture capital of the world, and at one point it actually was. Most of the large furniture makers are gone now, but there are still some high-end and niche furniture makers in the city. So there's a lot going on in the Triad itself, and you're close to the mountains. You can get to the beach pretty easily. Houses are reasonably inexpensive, although it is getting more expensive, but it is still relatively cheap. And in general, people just like North Carolina. It's always considered one of the top states in the country to move to. Mild weather, fewer natural disasters. There's a lot to love in the state, and that's why it's growing a lot, including in the Piedmont Triad. From North Carolina to South Carolina, I'm going to the mountainous part of the state and the Greenville, Spartanburg, Anderson metro area. Of the three main parts of this metro, Greenville is the largest. The city has about 73,000 people and the county about 560,000. When you add a couple of the other rural counties, the greater combined metro area in this region is over 1.3 million people, which is much larger than you might expect. Greenville definitely feels like the downtown of the entire metro, and downtown Greenville itself is a pretty cool spot. The major economic player in Greenville is Michelin. They have a huge plant there and a North American headquarters. Spartanburg is the slowest growing of the three parts of this metro, and it's also the poorest of the three parts of the metro. The largest player in the economy of the county is BMW. In fact, the largest BMW plant in the world is in Spartanburg County. Downtown Spartanburg is okay. The center of the city is Morgan Square. Denny's Restaurants has its headquarters there. The smallest of the three main counties of this metro is Anderson, which is the one that's right there on the Georgia border. Some of the major parts of the economy here are automotive suppliers for BMW, so the plant is over near Spartanburg, but many of the suppliers are in Anderson. Also part of this metro is Clemson, which is a major college town, a lot of research and labs going on with things at the university. And this is another metro located right in the heart of a beautiful region. You have the Appalachian Mountains there. You have several state parks there, Paris Mountain, Sassafras Mountain, Pinnacle Mountain. This is a large metro in terms of its area, and there is plenty of open space between Greenville and Spartanburg and Greenville and Anderson, but it is growing quite a bit and there isn't that much open space. So yeah, another tri-city metro with different cities, diversified economy, nice climate, beautiful scenery, a lot of folks moving there. Now heading up to the Midwest, I'm going to Michigan and the Saginaw Bay City Midland Metro. Of the metros I'll be discussing in this video, this is one of the smallest ones, but it's the only one that's losing population. And just like most of the other metros that are like this, there's a cute little name for it. You can't just call it the Tri-City, so this one's called the Great Lakes Bay region. It's located right where the Saginaw River dumps into Lake Huron at Saginaw Bay. The largest city and county in the region is Saginaw, with about 43,000 in the city and 187,000 in the county, and both have been losing population for decades. Bay City has just over 30,000 people and Bay County has just over 100,000, and just like Saginaw, they've both been losing population for decades. Of the Tri-Cities in this region, Midland is the largest one at 43,000, but Midland County is the smallest one at 84,000. But of the three, this is the only one that's seen any growth. There's been slow growth since the 80s. Of the three, Saginaw has the lowest income, the highest crime, and the most abandoned buildings. General Motors had a huge presence in Saginaw, but shut down many of its plants. There is still a major engine plant there, but with most of the jobs going away, a lot of the population went away. Bay City also has manufacturing. It's home to a large Ziploc bag plant. And Midland, again, the only one that's been growing at all, is home to Dow Chemicals. This is actually where napalm was made in the 1960s. Also in this metro is the smaller town of Frankenmuth, which has about 5,000 people. It's known for its really quaint downtown that was settled by German immigrants. In fact, many of the older people that live in this town speak German at home. With most of the population growth in Michigan being in the southwestern quadrant of the Lower Peninsula, many of the parts of the state that aren't there are losing population, including this Saginaw Bay City Midland metro. I started with one officially known as the Tri-Cities, and I'm going to end with one officially known as the Quad Cities. This is the one between Iowa and Illinois. The original Quad Cities were Davenport, Iowa, as well as Rock Island, Moline, and East Moline, Illinois, but in the recent years, Bettendorf, Iowa has passed East Moline in terms of population, so now there are actually 5 Quad Cities. On the Iowa side, you have the largest city of the Quad, which is Davenport with just over 100,000, but Bettendorf has about 40,000. On the Illinois side, the largest city is Moline at 42,000, Rock Island has 36,000, and East Moline has 20,000. The Quad Cities straddle the Mississippi River, which is the state line between Iowa and Illinois. The island right in the middle of the river is called Rock Island, and this is a military base. It's the largest military arsenal in the entire country. In this metro, the Iowa side is gaining a little bit of population, but the Illinois side is losing a little bit of population. There's been a big loss of manufacturing jobs in this region. Caterpillar had a big plant on the Iowa side that was closed down. John Deere is headquartered in Moline on the Illinois side, and they're cutting many jobs as well. So with some of those job cuts in the blue-collar sector and the military sector not really growing a whole lot, this population of this region has been kind of stagnant. But it isn't just the loss of so many manufacturing jobs that has hurt this region, it also frequently floods. There have been major floods that have affected the Quad Cities in 1993, 2008, and 2019. There have been smaller floods in different years as well, but this is a major area for a flood hazard. Of the 5 Quad Cities, the only one that's really growing is Bettendorf, and this is largely a bedroom community of suburbs to the rest of the Quad Cities. So unlike many of the metros I've discussed in this video, there isn't a heavily diversified economy, and again, not much population growth, but the houses are really cheap. So that's my look at tri and quad city metropolitan areas in the US, and there's certainly more in the country than I could cover in this video, so maybe I'll return to this topic in the future. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up to let me know you approve, and subscribe to this channel if you're interested in learning more about geography from a nerd. And if you want your room to look as cool as mine, you can get a couple of Muir Way maps like that. The link is in the description for a nice coupon code for a discount. But yeah, thanks for watching. Geography King, signing out. I'd like to give a special thanks to my superior patrons for their support, especially Kaz. Welcome to the family. If you're interested in supporting the channel, you can check out my Patreon page. The link is in the description. As always, thank you very much.